Good day, greetings. We continue giving you information, bring the voice behind the memo. And in this episode, we are looking at functions. That is, it's a consolidation of the work that you have done on functions in order for you to prepare for the tests that are coming and also the final examination for your grade 10. And remember, these basic concepts are very important when you proceed to grade 11 and grade 12 and even into the tertiary or in life in general. So it's very important to learn and understand these concepts. Now, question number 8, you are given a diagram which represents the graph of g of x, which is ax squared plus q, and h of x, which is equal to negative 2x plus 6, where a is the coordinate 0, 9, which is the turning point of g, b is the y-intercept of h, c and d with the coordinates 3, 0 are the points of intersection of G and H. And just to check also if the information given is what we have on the diagram. If there is any information that is mentioned up there and is not indicated, it is absolutely your responsibility to complete the diagram. All right, coming to questions. Determine the equation of G. Show all your steps. Now we need to understand that G is a parabola, is a quadratic function, and in grade 10 we know that the turning point is always along the x-axis. It's only changed from the origin by shifting up or down. So we can see that this graph has been shifted up by 9 units to bring the turning point to A, which is 0, 9. So automatically we begin to notice that our Q is equal to 9. And then, which means that our G of x is now equal to A x squared plus 9. Now what is left is to find the vertical shift, the vertical stretch, which is A. How do we do that? We just need one point which is on the graph of G, which we can substitute to create an equation to find A. Remember, it's only one unknown, so we just need one equation to solve for A. So we have point D, which is 3, 0. So we substitute D. So at D, our G of x is 0, which is equal to A, x is 3, so that's what we are squaring, plus 9. So simplifying this, is 0 is equal to 9a plus 9, and then we can transpose the 9 to this side, which is negative 9 is equal to 9a, and then eventually we divide both sides by 9. That is negative 9 divided by 9 is equal to 9a divided by 9. So that will give us negative 1 is equal to A. So that means that our G of x is equal to negative 1 times x squared is just negative x squared plus 9. That is our G of x. And we should not be surprised to get the value negative 1, because we know that if the graph is facing down, that is concave down, the value of A will be less than 0. And if the graph would have been facing up, that would mean our A should be greater than 0. So we already have knowledge that guides us about the value of A. All right, that is how we answer question 8.1. Now 8.2, they are saying write down the coordinates of B. Now B is the y-intercept, of h of x. Now h of x is a straight line, and what we know about the straight line is that generally its y is equal to ax plus q, where a represents the slopeness and q represents where the line cuts the y-axis. So by being given y is equal to negative 2x plus 6, we can tell that our y, where the graph cuts the y-axis, is at 6. So that gives us the coordinates of B straight away to say, of course, x is 0 and y is 6. And don't interchange these coordinates and start with 6 and then 0. Then it becomes wrong in that way. Okay, moving on to 8.3. 8.3 reads, if g of x is equal to negative x squared plus 9, calculate the x value at c. Now, the examiner is now given us g of x. In case we struggled to calculate or to determine the equation of g, but you should know that this is what the examiner wanted. So even if you had missed it here, then you still have a chance to go back and rectify your mistakes so that you come to this equation. Anyway, we are asked to calculate the value, the x value at c. Now, where is c? C is the intersection of the two functions. So what we know about the intersection of two functions is that they are equal. So to find the common point, we solve them simultaneously, or in simple terms, we simply equate. So we know that g of x is equal to negative x squared plus 9, and then h of x is equal to negative 2x plus 6. So at C, these two graphs, they share the x coordinate and the y coordinate. So that's basically taking us to simultaneous equations. So we simply equate. We are saying at C, g of x is equal to h of x, meaning that negative x squared plus 9 is equal to negative 2x plus 6. Now, this is a quadratic equation. So you know in grade 10 we solve by factorization. So we put everything to one side. Negative x squared plus 2x plus 9 minus 6 is equal to 0. That is negative x squared plus 2x plus 3 is equal to 0. Now we may have a bit of a challenge when the coefficient of x squared is negative, so we have to multiply throughout by negative so that it becomes positive. That is x squared minus 2x plus 3, minus 3 is equal to 0. Now factorization, that's the method we use in grade 10. That is x minus 3 into x plus 1. If you are not sure about factorization, then you have to fix the problem, because it will continue to haunt you as far as you do mathematics. So it's better you pay attention to it and fix it. Now, from this, using the zero rule, we are saying either x minus 3 is equal to 0 or x plus 1 is equal to 0. That is, x is equal to 3 or x is equal to negative 1. Now, why do we have two values of x here? It's because these two functions, they intersect at 2 points. So at one of these points, x will be 3, and then the other point, x will be 1. And where x is 3, it's at D. That's why we are not asked. So it's just there to confirm the correctness of our workings. And then where x is equal to negative 1, it's at C. So we are saying, therefore, at C, x is equal to negative 1. So that is answering this question. Then let's move on to 8.4. Now 8.4, we are being asked to use the graphs and the information that we have found about the graph according to the questions that we have been asked. All right. Use the graph to determine the values of x for which g is increasing. For which g is increasing. All right. So remember, we need to understand what it means to say a graph is increasing, a graph is decreasing. And I'm sure you have been taught that a graph increases, is an increasing when you look at the x values as they increase, the y values also increase. So how do we tell that? How do we know that? There are various ways in which this can be explained. You can take the x values from the left, because going to the right will be increasing. So if you are at this point, you can see your x. If you are at this point, this is your x. That means your x is increasing. Now let's check on the y coordinates. Firstly, you were here, and then you are moving positively with the x, and also the y is increasing. So that means the graph is increasing for this part until you reach the turning point. So how do we describe this part of the graph in terms of x? So we know that the values of x that are giving us this part of the graph are the values which are below 0. That means from 0 to negative infinity, since we are having an arrow which shows that the graph keeps going to negative infinity there. So it means the values of x also will be going to negative infinity. So this part is described by the values of x that are less than 0. That's the part where we see the graph increasing. We can also write this as x is an element from negative infinity to 0 exclusive. Why are we excluding 0? It's because at this point, when x is 0, it's a turning point. The graph neither decreases or increases. The other way is also to look at the inclination. The inclination, if the inclination is going up from left to right, that is, from left is going up, the inclination is going up. That's what tells us that this is the increasing part of the graph. And from the turning point, the inclination is going down from left. So this is where the graph is decreasing. All right, so the solutions to this question, it's x is less than 0, or x is an element in the interval negative infinity to 0. Now, the next question, we want to determine the values of x for which h of x is less than 0. H of x is less than 0. Now remember, h of x is the straight line. Now when we say h of x, we are basically talking about the values of y on h of x. So the values of y, there is actually the graph, this is where it goes below the x-axis. Remember, when we say h of x is less than 0, we are talking about the part of the graph that falls below the x-axis, because the x-axis provides the boundary line for the values of y that are positive and the values of y that are negative. So we want to describe this part of the graph that is below the x-axis. That is where h of x is less than 0. That is where the values of y for h of x are less than 0. Now, we can see that this started to happen immediately after 3. If you take any value that is greater than 3, it will give you a y value that is less than 0. So how do we describe this part in terms of x? So we are saying it is the values of x that are greater than 3. So the solution to this is x is greater than 3. Or we can say x is an element from 3 to positive infinity, because our graphs have the arrows, so it means that this continues to positive infinity. Now moving on to the last part of 8.4, we want to define this part where g of x is greater or equal to h of x. Now, when you are looking at these two graphs, one being greater, one being smaller, it's a question of which graph is on top of the other for the same values of x. So this happens immediately after the intersection or before the intersection. So in this question, we want where g of x is greater. That means where g of x is on top of h of x. So we can start with our graph. From the left, we know that this is going to negative infinity, that is going to negative infinity also as the values of x are concerned. So we can see that g is below, h of x is on top, g is below. And as we continue to move with the values of x from negative infinity, we reach where they intersect. And when they intersect, that's when we see the graph of g is now on top and g is below. So we are saying, starting from this x value, -1, h of x is above until they meet again. That is where x is equal to 3. And after this point, we see that h of x now goes on top and g of x goes below. So we just want where h of x is on top of g of x. So for that, we are saying it's a closed interval. That means x is greater or equal to -1, but less or equal to 3. Remember, the inequalities, they follow the question. Here we have g of x is greater or equal to h of x. So we check at the points that we are talking about. X is included because we are saying greater, or both graphs are defined there, and also here both graphs are defined. Okay, then let's move to 8.5, which is the last question. It reads as follows. Write down the equation of k if k is a reflection of h about the y-axis. Now, this question requires your knowledge of transformation of graphs. It's not about going to the graph and try to do anything, try to reflect the graph. It's the preconceived knowledge that you have that can defend you against this question. So we understand that if k of x is a reflection of h about the y-axis, what we understand is that the x-coordinate is what is affected, that is multiplied by negative. Just to take a brief illustration, if you are having a point here that is 2, 3, and you reflect it along the y-axis, the point's image will be this side of the y-axis. The same distance is 2, and here, so it means we will measure also 2 units in the negative sense. That means our new coordinate for x becomes -2. Our y coordinate will not change, so this point will be -2, 3. So that tells you that where there is x, you put -x to reflect the graph along the y-axis. So basically we are saying k of x will be equal to -2. Where there is x, we put -x to show that this is what happens when we reflect along the y-axis, and then plus 6. So simplifying this, it becomes 2x, that is -2 times -x is +2x plus 6. That is our equation for k of x. So that is how you could do to get all the 14 marks in this question. I do understand that most learners, when it comes to the questions of this type, they have difficulties. So these are the points that you need really to take care of, understand, practice as many questions as you can, seek assistance, and then things will be okay with you. Thank you. We'll bring more questions for your practice. See you then.